Welcome, broadcasting to the entirety of the Super Smash Bros. Community. This is Beyond the Metagame. I'm your host, Peon, this week live from the White House, but it's 2008. Michelle Obama's doing her thing in the corner, and also joining me is AV, my wonderful co-host. How you doing, big guy?
You know, that actually feels so long ago that I have zero perspective on what was going on in 2008. What was the Obama family doing in 2008?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Michelle is doing her thing, looking magnificent, looking majestic. Think of how many adjectives you could use to correctly describe Michelle.
Oh, probably a generous handful that are pretty much all positive. So I don't want to go through the list because I think that will take up the entire podcast. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, big guy. I'm doing real well. I think the 2008 Smashers are just now getting into Brawl, right? They're just starting to see how good Meta Knight is. But I don't care about 2008 Smashers, AV. I want to know, how was your week in Smash?
So I've been on a bit of like a very introspective break right now.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about DK. I've been doing a lot of watching, a lot of VOD reviews, looking at what the latest DK players are doing. I haven't been playing a lot. I've mostly been focusing on studying players, and I think that is going to like culminate soon in some sort of let's say the enlightenment period, or maybe a renaissance period of sorts, where
wow.
where hopefully,
but you're kind of known for that though, like where you'll study almost like a monk. You'll like retreat to the mountaintops in like some sort of smoky volcanic atmosphere, and you'll come back with like some knowledge, some greater knowledge, like almost like a gift to those around you. And you always seem to do well after like a brief period of meditative absence. Do you think that that's what's going to happen this time?
I hope so. It's usually been this way. I don't really announce or say that I'm going into one of these meditative absences. I have no need to get validation from people that I'm taking a break. But no, and this isn't really because I'm like burning out or anything. I just think I wanted to refocus. I know that there's a lot of struggles with like creating a mindset and a play style around this character, and I just wanted to shore up a bunch of my weaknesses. So that's my week. How about you, man?
Dude, I've been doing great. I had like a little invitational tournament in my local region. It was kind of a mix between a local and a regional. It was a pretty cool event. One of our community members kind of threw on. He invited all the PR players and 6 other players who were able to qualify, sort of like a summit sort of format. It was really cool. I think that other local scenes should experiment with that. But it was great. I actually ended up winning it, which was really cool. I was playing Inkling all the way up in winners, and then I really trusted my counter picks, and I was like, you know what, I haven't really been playing Wolf recently, but I just feel like in this set Wolf is the character I need, and I was able to actually take grands with like my super rusty Wolf that like I hadn't played in a while.
Man. That's really awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's super cool, especially with Wolf. I mean, I've played your Wolf a few times, and even no matter how rusty it was still very serviceable. So I'm not as surprised as maybe you were.
My Wolf is so ugly. It's like a journeyman's Wolf. But that's kind of like, I think there's no shame in having a pocket character that's kind of easy and that you can lean into. Just like if you have good neutral, you can kind of just play. Like Wolf's one of those characters. Lucina is one of those characters.
Yeah.
I think that it's a smart thing to have, and I'm glad I actually used the tool that I have,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Lucina is that character for me, regardless of how much I've really played her. It can always come out as a nice little Swiss Army knife in those precarious situations. So I think
cool, man.
I think that's really cool that you're able to win, and I'm super happy. That's awesome.
Thanks, buddy. But before we get into this week's episode properly, I do want to do a bit of housekeeping, and I have some pretty important, maybe not important, but at least some exciting things to announce. Our Discord server, and I teased this a few weeks back, finally launched our Pokemon League. And if you're wondering, okay, what the hell is the Pokemon League, Peon? It's basically a cool little system. 8 different gym leaders have qualified based on tournament results within our community. and they all have their own badge, and they're all accepting challengers. And you can go and challenge them in the Discord. The gym leaders usually kind of announce like, "Hey, I'm taking challenges for the next couple hours. Come fight me." And yeah, people are taking them on. People are earning their badges and trying to get all 8. And it's been a really cool experiment we've been running, and I think people have really had a good time doing it so far.
Yeah, it's really
have you gotten to like hear anybody's opinions on it so far?
I think it's going pretty well. There's obviously some stuff in our beta / V1 period that we will need to figure out, but the idea of it and like when people have been able to engage with it positively, it's been incredible. Like I think it's super cool. I'm excited for the future. If we can continue with this and iterate on it, it'll be a really awesome asset for the community, especially to kind of give you a boost when like some of your other like results or quantities of victory or measures of success are not panning out. I think it's going to work really well as a stepping stone to kind of get you through those plateau periods.
Cool, man. And last but not least, AV and I have launched BTM's Patreon. We're still in the early phases, but we have some really awesome reward tiers, including a reward for every patron, regardless of how much you pledge. Is our second podcast, Beyond the Metagame, where we talk about everything but Smash, and our patrons tell us what to do, tell us what bits to make. And in our first episode, which has officially launched, we did a lot of funny things. It was a lot of fun to make AV. I'm excited I think people have really liked it so far, so it's been really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much treat it like an entire like quality production. We don't skimp on the content, so it's super exciting. I really want people to engage with it and have fun with it. Like we literally took one of the suggestions from our Patreon chat, and we implemented it, and it turned out well. So if you want to look forward to kind of giving us direct suggestions that we will implement, I think it's something that I think is going to be really cool in the future. So I'm really excited.
Well, sure thing, man. But this week we're here to talk about Tilt. AV, do you want to introduce us before we get into the episode proper?
Yeah, sure thing. So obviously, just like we break down any other topic, we're going to go over what is Tilt. Are you tilting? Is tilting like necessarily bad? And how do we get past it? Now, one of the important things that we engage with this topic is kind of removing the stigma from it. Don't go into this episode thinking about like, how do I completely remove tilt? How do I figure out one quick trick to remove it? Kind of just pick up the essence, the framework, to start moving forward and using it as a fire for your competitiveness rather than something that you feel like you need to eliminate altogether.
Cool thing, man. Well, all that and more in just 1 second. Welcome back to Beyond the Metagame. This week, AV and I are here to talk about Tilt. AV, I think the first thing that we should do, and call me crazy, is...
You're crazy.
Introduced AV, I have a very, very simple request for you, okay? What is Tilt? Let's get that out of the way. So originally it was a poker term. Actually, you know what? I refute that. I think originally it was like a pinball term. Right? Like when you're playing the pinball machines, and if you get angry and you start to like shake the machine to try to like cheat or something, the machine will shut down because you've tilted it, and it says like tilt.
Yeah, shout out to...
Is that the same thing?
Yeah, shout out to Space Pinball on Windows XP.
Dude, if Smash ever loses interest in the mainstream, maybe we should make a Spaceball podcast.
Oh, okay, yeah, for sure. We honestly definitely get that black hole bonus, like those Hyperloop, the Hyperloop bonus, like we got entire episodes on those.
Can they need to bring that game to like Steam or at least to, like Windows 10 or on mobile. I would pay at least $5 for that, like no questions asked.
Yeah, it's I actually would too. It's like such a nostalgia like mine. It's a gold mine for nostalgia. If you thought the new Pokemon movie was one, this is like probably 10 times that.
Well, yeah, man. I don't know if it has any origins in pinball. Actually, I don't know if that's like the same tilt. Maybe that's a stretch, but for sure, it's a poker term that poker players utilize, and gaming has kind of adopted. And I think you've probably heard it before, but in case you haven't, and it basically goes down like this. Let's use Smash analogies, where you hop on Elite Smash and you play a game, and it doesn't go so well, and you start to get frustrated. Maybe you play against like some laggy Link, and you keep getting hit by the projectiles, and you're upset, and then you get blinded by this rage and this frustration, and then you end up playing worse, and then you lose more, and you lose more severely, which then perpetuates this vicious cycle. And now you're playing even worse because you're more emotional, and you're playing more irrationally, and you just keep on descending. Your mental state keeps on descending until you're finally, I don't know, punch a hole in the wall or just turn your switch off in frustration. AV, do you want to like talk with me a little bit about the science behind all of this?
Sure thing. I mean, you were kind enough to kind of lay out the framework for the biological response that comes from it, and it is the amygdala, which is responsible for your fight or flight. So, and this will take over in many different situations, including competitive video games.
Yeah, the amygdala is like a little like I'm no brain scientist, AV.
Mhm.
I don't even think I have an entire brain. I would be the least bit surprised if I found out a large portion of it was gone from a very early age. I am not entirely functional, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but however, you've made great use of what you have left. So
I have to carry around a document in case I talk to any authorities. I actually have to show my paperwork and say, look, I am not entirely there.
do you paint like what's left and what's your right hand every day to make sure you don't mix them up?
Is that a thing?
I think
If that is a thing, I feel like that's terribly sad. Actually, I feel like that was very insensitive.
I read it in some old storybook a long time ago. So if it's an actual thing, that sucks. I'm sorry, but
that sucks. If your brain has irreparable damage, that sucks. AV, okay, but no, the amygdala. Okay, so it all comes down to the amygdala, right? And the amygdala is like a little almond-shaped bulb in your brain that is responsible for like your fight or flight response, emotional reactions, right? When you play Smash, it's a very like cognitive thing. It's very much like mental chess that you're playing at a very high speed. That's what's so addicting about it, right? But the moment that your amygdala takes over, and it does take over, it literally will grab hold of your entire brain and will completely trump the rational parts of your brain, right? And I mean, this was useful, like, in evolutionary biology, like when we were out in a field and there was like an elephant chasing us, your amygdala better be telling you to run away. But when it comes to nuanced problems, like, okay, how do I get past this projectile wall when the connection's really laggy, or how do I beat this player who's camping me out and we're almost out of time in the tournament match? A fight or flight response is not what you need. You need to like stay calm and think your way through these issues. So how do you prevent that sort of, reaction from happening, that emotional overdrive from happening?
I mean, that's a good point. It's not only that you're unable to create analytical frameworks properly, your ability to make really small granular like movements even decrease. Like your ability to like just tilt the stick instead of just smashing it decreases. Your like any type of really small micro movement that you have to do, it becomes way harder because the response that comes from your body is not, it's not necessary. All of those like small like micro movements that you use for like crafting and you use for art, are not that important when you're in a fight or flight response. So your brain just kind of shuts them off. This is not useful when Smash requires a lot of really precise inputs that often like rely on analog controls, not binary controls. So this is going to be really, it's going to be really important, like Peon said, to figure out how to suppress this reaction in different scenarios, and when sometimes you can use this reaction to your benefit.
Yeah, it's just kind of like how sports psychology Steve was saying, like when we had him on. I know I would always define like the ideal mental state to be like while playing, like the midpoint between, a complete anxiety attack and like absolute apathy, right? Is where I want to be when I'm playing. Like just kind of like, I want to be engaged but not like freaking out about it. And Steve, our favorite sports psychologist, kind of like he was like, well, yeah, maybe that's the ideal mental state to be, but not if like you're being chased by a bear, right? If you're being chased by a bear, maybe you do want to be having an anxiety attack. And like, maybe if you're playing chess, you do want to be closer to that apathy level to where you can just sort of think calmly. And I think everybody has their state, but I think that tilting for me, at least whenever I tilt and recognize that I'm on tilt, I'm definitely too close to that running away from the bear mode.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this. I want to hear about like times where you've tilted, and I want to maybe talk about like what you've done to remedy it or how you've recognized it really well.
Yeah. So I do have to go back a little bit in the vault. I'm not very much of a tilted a person who tilts, and I attribute that to like I've been playing competitive video games my whole life pretty much. And this is a lesson I've learned. But when I was younger, maybe 5-6 years ago, I was a tilt monster, and I still do tilt. But I used to tilt, every time I'd fire up like League of Legends back in the day when I was like 15, or and like the old Halo games or Call of Duties. I was like a rage monster. Maybe it was like puberty too, to be honest. But but now I don't normally tilt, but when I do, it's that much more noticeable for me. And I've recently found myself tilting against a really talented Lucina player in my region, who's super good at the Lucina Inkling matchup. And I was playing against him recently, and I'm so ashamed to admit this. I was playing him in tournament, and he just had my number on this occasion. He was just completely edge guarding me, was stuffing me out in neutral. And I noticed I just kind of started to apathetically approach him in like such a defeated, dejected way. Like I knew my approaches weren't going to work, but I still marched along anyway instead of actually trying to like problem solve.
Interesting. So like, did you eventually iron it out, or did you kind of continue in your apathetic state until you lost or somehow won? Like what did you do to kind of reset?
I got 3-0'd that set. It was in grands. I was in loser set of grands, so I got second in that tournament. Okay. And I walked away with my tail between my legs. I was defeated. It was, and I hate to admit it, but it's true.
Well,
and that was pretty recently.
Well, the thing is, from what I understand, you also went on to take a set from him. And what changed in between the lost set and the won set?
Oh yeah, well, like I referenced in the intro, I won that tournament over that Lucina player with my wolf. For me, it was the change to wolf. It was like I think I'm still a little tilted in that matchup, and I don't, maybe not literal sense, but I just don't know how to play it. And I know that if I start losing Inkling versus Lucina, I will be more prone to tilt. I'll start getting mad like irresponsibly early onto a match. So I just kind of like retreated and took a different approach. I'm like, I'm gonna just try the wolf, but that was mostly because I know I would have gotten tilted if I played Inkling.
Absolutely fair. Yeah, I think that's cool that you were able to use a different channel to kind of address your tilt. And I hope that someday you'll be able to figure that matchup out, or maybe you'll just only use wolf for it. So I will be interested to see how that works out.
Dude, I wanna just play like one, or I don't really want to have to counter pick. I feel like Smash Ultimate is a game where counter picking is just so strong that I don't know why. I feel like the responsible thing is just to embrace the counter pick. But yeah, I wish I do feel a little bit like I'm giving up, like I'm kind of giving into the tilt. I'm giving into like, you know what? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
here's the thing. I guess this is a question that we have to answer in this episode, or at least attempt to, is that, is it okay to admit that certain criteria will make us tilt, and to avoid that criteria? For me, it's the Inkling Lucina matchup, which, for the record, I don't even think is a bad matchup for Inkling. I think it's probably even. I'm just terrible at it. But, is the answer avoid that criteria that would be tilting? Or is it like figure out how to make that not tilt you? You know what I mean? Like, what is the approach here?
Yeah, I mean that kind of boils down to short-term versus long-term gains, and I think we've addressed this concept a lot. Like in the long term, if you eventually figure out what's bothering you with the Lucina matchup, it not only like just helps you in the Lucina matchup, that'll kind of patches up that part of your play. So that addresses an entire sector of why you're struggling to perform as a player. Whereas if you switch to a different character, it doesn't address that specific problem in your play. It addresses it just basically is kind of this weird lateral shift that allows you to progress.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the thing that I'm not really afraid of. But the fact is, when I switch off of the Inkling in this instance, it's because there's some part of the matchup, the Lucina Inkling matchup, that I just fundamentally don't understand, or some aspect of my play that's being punished that I'm unable thus far to overcome, and switching towards the easier option. And I don't think that, the whole adage, like, work smart, not hard. Make it as easy for yourself as possible to succeed. I do believe that, but the question I want you to ask for me, Avi, is like, am I just protecting myself, or am I confronting the possibility of tilt?
That's a really good question. I think it's okay to protect yourself sometimes. Like, I mean, this game is not going to be around forever, and in the long run, we're all dead. So I don't
Jesus,
think.
where are you going with that?
Have you never heard of Friedrich Hayek?
Friedrich
Uh,
Hayek? I have not, and
uh,
I frankly don't know if I want to. Where's this going?
the biggest critic of Keynesian economics. So, well, in
Okay.
any case, there's actually a really popular rap battle video between them. So it's actually somewhat ingrained in popular culture. So I hope some of you have seen it. But in
Who
essence,
would, that's like 10 people in the world to be like, would be a sick rap battle is Frederick Hayek and Keynesian's, the economist Keynesian.
Keynes, but not fair. But I think that in essence, to bring this back to Smash, there is a certain point that your long run adaptations and your like the hits that you try to take in order to become a better player in the long run never amounts to anything. It never like manifests itself into anything. So kind of cashing out with these secondary picks and playing the game and playing what gets you W's in the moment is sometimes not necessarily the worst thing. But the problem is that then you get into this whole idea of which one should I do, and it just confuses the hell out of you.
Yeah, well, that's like, dude, you just gotta, like, you made me think, like, how, in every great story, every great hero has to, like, first go through a pit of darkness before they save the princess, whatever, right? Like, Harry Potter needs to take an avada to the mouth before he can, like, save Hogwarts or whatever. I don't know. You get the point. Um, so it almost feels like I'm cheating by not undergoing this. And here's the thing. I feel like without overcoming this challenge, let's say in this case, confronting the possibility of tilt with Inkling, um, nothing is being gained. I'm not really like developing as a dude or as a player. I'm just kind of dancing around like my obligations, or, avoiding conflict that might ultimately forge me into a more worthwhile competitor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, going through that narrative and that hero's journey is important. On the other sense, it's overrated if you don't have to do it. Like, think about the trust fund babies. Like, they're going to be successful because they got connections and they got their parents to pay for everything. I mean, they're being successful. That was their path there. They had no
Yeah.
hero's journey.
Yeah, those
Like,
guys look happy. It's like the Daniel Tosh thing. It's like, if money can't buy you happiness, well, it could buy you a jet ski. And like, I've never seen someone look pissed off on a jet ski. Yeah, those trust those trust fund babies, they might be doing it right. Like, why do I want to be a hero? Why do we want to struggle, AB? Why not just?
Well, that's the thing is that, I mean, it's only insofar as what you want to accomplish is how much you need to struggle. Your struggle is directly proportional to how much you want to accomplish. If you want to be the best player in your region, you're going to have to put in the time and you're going to have to overcome struggles, which is maybe it's matchups, maybe it's players. So it's just very contextual to your goals.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of bullshit that we kind of romanticize struggle. Like I think that, well, in my own head, part of what I think makes Smash worth it, or like a competitive hobby worth it in general, is the person you become as a result of your struggle. But maybe that's a stupid way to look at it. Maybe it's like the person that you become as a result of your accomplishments. And, of course, those accomplishments will involve struggle, but it doesn't necessarily have to be some immense damaging struggle or one, you know, consumed by constantly going on tilt and having a bad time and like perhaps we should just try to avoid this stuff. We shouldn't try to overcome tilt. That's kind of where I've landed on this.
Sure. Okay, so this kind of gets into the point of like is tilt is it impossible to completely get rid of tilt and is tilt bad? What causes it? In my opinion, the root cause of tilt just lies in any competitive activity. You're gonna get to a point where you're kind of hitting against a wall, and there's nothing you can to get past it. And sometimes you're just not on point. Sometimes it's very environmental, like you haven't eaten or you took too much caffeine, and now you're like playing like the Energizer Bunny, except that's really bad in Smash because your brain can't keep up with your hands. And and the thing is, you think you're playing badly, but in essence, it's just environmental. And then you lose like 4 million GSP because you keep losing over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is you have to accept that at some points you're not going to be playing at your best. At some point, these environmental issues and these things that come up in competitive games, like someone like calls you a dweeb at the end of your set, that incites this rage of anger that goes
Wait.
and makes you
A dweeb? What is
I
this,
don't know, man.
1997?
Look, if
You're a
what if someone called you?
dweeb.
Actually, I would actually find that very endearing if someone called me a dweeb, especially if like I just ding donged someone and said you're a dweeb, and then they called me a dweeb. I think that would actually give me like strength as a
Only
player.
dweebs. Well, no, I don't think anybody said. I think even dweebs don't call people dweebs.
So what am I then?
I
But
feel like the last person to call someone a dweeb was like wearing rollerblades, like and watching like I don't know Drake and Josh. No, what was even earlier than that? Like Keenan and Kel, like on Nickelodeon.
yeah, that's some old stuff. But you get the point, right? Like if someone says something like really passive aggressive to you after a game, and then you lose both your matches after that, 'cause it's like how are we just trying to become more resistant to change? Are we trying to just make our habits and our environment as stable as humanly possible? Is that the answer to this?
Yeah, I guess it's one part prevention and one part um dealing with it once it's there. Like things are inevitably going to tilt you. I don't care if you're like the Terminator. Something's going to tilt you at some point. Like someone's going to beat you and pop off or something, like scream in your ear, like "Woo, I won, yay!" And you're going to be like, "Man, I hate this dweeb." Uh, or maybe someone has a terrible play style, or somebody's I don't know. The way they play just counters you. Or they play a character you hate. You're gonna be tilted. So I think like we have to prevent it, but we also have to treat it once it's there.
Right, there's like active intervention and there's prevention. Obviously, prevention is the easiest thing to do, and I think basically making sure that you arrive in your best state to play games is probably a good idea. Question: this is gonna be a hard question for you. Let's just say you're having a bad day. You're like maybe you're a little sick, maybe you're a little under the weather, maybe your boss just gave you some like bad news or told you that you weren't doing well. Do you show up at the tournament at that night? Can you disassociate your lives, or do you think that you should just avoid Smash for the night and just take some time to reset?
Oh, so you're talking about like external factors impacting your like the ease of tilting in a set or something like if you come
Yeah,
into a
because
tournament.
often
Oh, go ahead.
right. No, I was just gonna say often it is external factors. Tilt in my opinion, is like very intertwined with external factors. Because the thing is, tilt is essentially like throwing away responsibility. A lot of the time is throwing away the responsibility on yourself, like, and just moving it to other things. And when you have like these external factors, it's so easy to blame them instead of throwing the responsibility on yourself to prevent and actively intervene when those experiences happen. So I'll let you answer that question again. Should you show up to that tournament after you got some bad news or you're not feeling great?
Yes, I think so. If you want to improve, and let's say like you had a terrible day. Let's say I don't know. Yeah, sure. The example you said, your boss was like, "Hey, Smasher X, I think that your performance today was lackluster at best, and you know, you look like a dumbass. I don't know what does it mean, and then so you come you're driving away from work. You have like a tear rolling down your cheek, and you're like, man, I was having such a good day. Yeah, I was really looking forward to this tournament. I think if you're a competitor, if your end goal is to improve, I think you go right. I think a lot about competing is, especially like developing consistency as a player, is making sure that like your valley, not your peak, is higher. Like you don't just want to be good at your highs; you want to be good at your lows. And I think that it's important to be a little bit self aware and say, look, man, I'm having a bad day. I am a little emotional. I'm likely going to be more fragile, and I'm going to be more likely to tilt. But yeah, I think you should still go. Within reason. I mean, if your cat died or something, maybe go home and eat some ice cream. But I don't know. I think within reason, you should try to push through it.
Cool, because I disagree. I I actually don't think you should go. I mean, obviously, if like maybe you lost your favorite pencil, then maybe you should still go. It's like you said, there is a spectrum of negative experiences that you can have.
Yeah,
But
we
I
agree. There's
actually
a
think,
line.
yeah, yeah, we agree on the line. I think we're just trying to place it at this point. For me, every time I would just not enter, and that would be my approach. I would know that I'm not in a good state to play games, and if I do, it'll become that thing where one loss becomes two, like two losses become four, and suddenly you go from like plat 2 to bronze 6 in league. Like that's like a League of Legends example, but in like maybe in Smash, like you go from like 4 million to 0 GSP, and then
Yeah,
like what
I
happened to
think
you?
that's soft.
And
I couldn't disagree more with you. Actually, I think that like there's some the part about being a smasher. Like, sure, if you're just an online guy and you just want to increase your GSP, sure, choose when you want to play. But the thing is, in the world of Smash, in the world like where there's a weekly tournament scheduled a month in advance, right? Your locals, or there's like a major that you have to book flights for and travel to. You don't get to decide how you feel or what other factors are going to happen to you. You might lose your bags on the way to the tournament. You might get a really bad phone call. But the Smash happens not when you want it to sometimes. You have to prepare and show up on that day. And if you don't train yourself to be able to play through those like negative criteria and to prevent tilt even under um, you know like bad conditions, then you won't be prepared for those opportunities.
okay, so there's a difference between like booking like flights for a major, booking your hotel, and then something bad happens, like whether or not you still go. I mean, I think there still is a line. There are some things that could prevent you from going. But I agree. There's situations that like you would just go for for the experience, regardless of whether or not your experience as a competitor is going to be good. And the thing is that there are times I think that you can treat Smash like some of these games where you play on your time and you schedule on your time, because when you're not playing well, a lot of the time you reinforce bad behaviors. A lot of the time when you're not playing well, it's not just about like tough it out. In my opinion, that approach lacks empathy. It lacks the understanding that humans that the humans are not going sometimes are just not going to be able to perform at their best and are going to reinforce bad behaviors, and maybe even spiral down further when they are in a non-productive mood or a non-productive state. In my opinion, those are the times where you refocus, you maybe show up and you play friendlies, and you just take some time to make sure that you're stable.
No.
Eventually,
You're like
I
the
think,
parent that won't let their kid play at the playground because they're gonna like scrape their knee or something.
yeah,
Like
and you're like the
it's
parent
like
that like that sends the kid like to Mars without a helmet. Like like
I don't think you
I
need a
think
helmet to go to Mars. I think you just go in the spaceship. What are you talking about? Um, well, I guess you need a space helmet. Astronauts do wear helmets. Whatever.
yeah, they wear helmets.
Fair. Okay, that's a stupid analogy. No. I don't think that your Smash competitors need empathy. I don't. I think they need endurance and resilience. And I think that there's a lot to learn from playing on tilt and from having bad days. Like if you go to a tournament and don't enter because you're feeling bad, you had a bad day. I mean, what kind of lesson is that? And what kind of attitude is that? You don't always get to choose when your bad days are. Like, so every time that you have a bad day, and there's like the 2 tournaments you can go to a month, if you happen to have a bad day that day, you're just not going to go. I think that's ridiculous. I think that if you, of course, if something terrible happens to you, okay, yeah, but like in the analogy we use, the boss was mean to you, or you just weren't feeling good. Look, if you go and play and you go on tilt and you can't focus, you're just playing emotionally and you can't rationalize anything, and you do poorly, okay, that probably sucks, but you learn something. You're improving. You're out there.
But did you learn something? Like, what if you just don't take anything from that experience other than that it sucked? What if you just show up, you get beat up, you have no productive thoughts whatsoever, and you look back on it and it just sucked? Like,
Yeah,
and
well,
it just
it probably will. I've had tournaments where I've
yeah.
gone to and I've walked away like, why do I do this? This is stupid. Why do I have a Smash Bros podcast? Where am I? Who is God real? Does my girlfriend love me? I've had like, you know how many existential crises I have per year because I got like upset at a Smash tournament? It's ridiculous. Smash is a cruel mistress. I mean, you're gonna have pain, but without the pain, without experiencing tilt and experiencing like these these like heightened emotional states of play followed by crushing defeat, you'll never persevere. I think that like you still have to try.
I
You
mean, I think
still.
that yeah, okay, fair. Look, I'll agree to meet you at some point in the middle. I don't think that the answer is this hyper masculine, like no pain no gain situation.
That's not what I'm saying.
It is that your rhetoric is like very along the lines of that. I
Is that
think that there are that I think that there are like situations where you just can't be productive, and in those situations you have to accept the fact that like that this is not an optimal use of your time. Here's the thing, it is contextual. You said like I like your example where you said, okay, you have 2 tournaments a month that you get to go to. In that case, you probably can't even afford to do that. It's very much a privilege thing. But if you have like 3 tournaments you attend a week, I think that you have the privilege to say, I'm not feeling well today, I am not going to enter.
I just think that saying, hey, you're not feeling good, so don't engage in your hobby. I think that like the moment you tell someone, hey, just don't, just don't do it. I think that's throwing up the white flag. And I'll provide an alternate solution. I'm not trying to come off as like macho. That's not what this is about. Um, I'm just trying to be pragmatic and to find a solution that still allows people to participate. And in my opinion, to keep on improving, despite any negative factors. Because I think that when you're in these moods, you probably will be playing worse, right? But you can never control the external factors. So, okay, you have to learn, how do I play when I'm playing at my worst? And how do I still maintain consistency, right? And this is my proposition, AB. When you're having these terrible days, when you might not be caring about a tournament, when you're likely to go on tilt, and this isn't even necessarily when you're having a bad day. It could just be like when you're playing against an annoying playstyle, whatever other factor might lead you to initially going on tilt and start playing emotionally, right? Is change your goal. Maybe normally when you go to a tournament, your goal is to win the whole thing. Maybe it's to make an upset. Well, maybe now it's to like practice your edge guarding in high pressure situations. Maybe now your goal is to like learn a lot about the matchups that you have to play in that tournament. Um, you know, it doesn't matter. Like you can change your goal while still participating. And I think if you don't invest so much in any given game or any given outcome or result, it makes it a lot easier to avoid being on put on tilt.
I can get on board with that for the most part. I'll give this is what I'll concede to you. I will say that going in and coming in with like a different mindset and a different goal, saying, okay, I know I'm not playing at my best. Let's see what I can do today. If like, and just like changing your expectations, that's fine. But the thing is, the kind of mentality that you talked about, how like you need to go through these experiences, you need to know how it feels to play on tilt and still care, in my opinion, are not compatible and do conflict with what you said. Lowering your expectations doesn't give you an ability to compete with tilt. All it does is basically lets you it lets you justify your experience afterward. And I actually don't think that is okay. Here's what I
Well,
suggest in
I
tandem with that.
wait, but can I
Well,
respond to that
yeah,
first?
sure,
I,
sure, go
I,
for it.
I disagree that they are in conflict. I think that you can still strive to make your goal. Let's say like I'm feeling bad, I'm going to do poorly. I'm going to make my goal today working on my edge guarding or maybe working on a secondary, right?
Sure,
And
but the question is,
no, let
why
me let
not
me
just play? Why not just like play friendlies? Like why like the and focus on that? Why
because
enter the
people
tournament?
because people like to put the hobby for many people is being this is a competitively minded podcast. We assume that you like to compete, right? So I mean
Sure.
that's the assumption I'm making, that like when I never go to a tournament. You will never ever see Peon go to a tournament just to hang out. That sounds like the most boring thing in the world to me. When I go to a tournament, I want to. That's why I go. If I want to just hang out, I'll go to like my local TGI Fridays and drink a beer. If I go to a Smash tournament, it's because I want to compete in a Smash tournament. I'm not speaking for everybody, but that's the assumption I'm making, right? But the point is, you let me finish. When it comes to adjusting your goals, right, to comply with the possibility of tilt, saying, "Look, I'm not going to be outcome dependent. I'm going to just decide, look, I'm going to refine my goals, understanding self aware, with self awareness that I'm not going to be at my A game today." Um, doesn't conflict with disallowing yourself to persevere through tilt, because frankly you're still going to fall short of that goal very often. Like even days where I try to take the game less seriously, I have a heart that burns like a goddamn phoenix, AV, like dragon fire. And when I'm in the middle of a match, I still want to win. I still walk away with disappointment. And I know full well that it will still hurt a little bit, even if that's not my primary goal. So you still have to contend with it. It isn't like an on-off switch you can throw.
First of all, fair. Second of all, you didn't let me finish my point either. So I'm just saying but okay, here's the thing. I think your view makes sense for people who are like you. I think this is very much a personality thing. There's people who grow in different ways, and there's people who experience competitiveness in different ways. There are plenty of people who show up to tournaments and only play friendlies. There are people who show up and will enter regardless of what of their circumstances. Some people are not like mentally strong enough, and some people maybe have different mental frameworks. I think that there is a different solution for different people. In my opinion, I don't think that it is everyone's prerogative to have this like burning heart of the phoenix, and which will eventually lead them to burning out. It's all about like overall experience with the game, and if you can get more like productivity out of playing friendlies with the people that show up to the tournament rather than entering and being negatively affected in a greater way, that in my opinion is a greater experience. However,
but AV,
ideally, but look,
sorry, go ahead.
like last thing, ideally I want everyone to enter. That's the thing. That's where
we agree on that, because like the ultimate, let's say like you are sponsoring a player, you're sponsoring a player, like let's say it's a I don't know, Tweak, right? Tweak's your guy. You're paying for him to compete, to represent your brand, right? And it's your job to mold him, right? And your job to make him the best he could possibly be, using what you're good at. AV is he's beyond the metagame like discussion points. That my ideal perfect player always wants to enter the tournament every time, because he always wants to compete. That's what he loves doing, and it makes him happy to compete, even under potentially terrible conditions. You know, maybe he had a terrible day. Well, his relief, his freedom, his escapism from that terrible thing is the tournament. It isn't, the tournament itself isn't a battleground with which to fight off tilting. And I think that you have to confront, I think you have to work through that phase of getting through the tilt to develop into a player who can constantly use competing or playing online or doing whatever their competitive hobby is. For us, it's Smash. Despite that criteria, right? I think so. If I was TSM, I would say, Tweak, I don't care if your day was bad, you know, within reason. I would say, look, man, yeah, let's use this. You know, fight through this. Let's do this. Like, you know, let's address this. Let's talk through this. And let's get you on board to where this is like a vacation for you, not a job, right? Isn't that the goal?
Yes. Like I said, the ideal scenario is that everyone enters. That is optimal. I will absolutely agree with you. If everyone could enter and everyone could like somehow be productive and get through these experiences by entering, I would love that. I'm on board with you with that. And as one last attempt to kind of give an analogy for the situation, for maybe for you to like see maybe a different perspective of what I'm talking about, is choosing your battles. Like when you're like leading an army, you're not going to choose to engage in every single conflict. You're going to choose to like let go of some things, like basically strategize to basically maximize your wins and to cut your losses immediately. Some people are better at optimizing for these things, and I'm one of those people. I don't think that I will. There are times where I can optimize my productivity to a situation. And the thing is that telling people to fight through it, not everyone is TSM Tweak. If I was sponsoring a player and it was their job to go and play for me, they are playing every tournament. Sure. I mean, if they need to take a break and they need to address burnout or something, whatever, but I want them to enter every tournament.
That you want fair. You want them to want to, right? If they don't want to, you don't want them to.
Yes.
But you want them to want to.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, exactly. But not your point does not address the imperfect individual, and in my opinion, I am an imperfect individual. I don't hold myself to a standard where I'm going to be like this like perfect standard. I hold myself to a how can I optimize to get like ideal efficiency out of something, rather than how do I look up to this gold standard. And I think that is where we're kind of missing each other in this.
Yeah, for me, it's not an issue of efficiency. It's like an issue of like for me, tournaments should always be fun, right? Like I should have fun, or playing the game in a competitive way, playing on quick play, playing with people on the arena, right? And I feel like the best prevention is allocating your goals and thinking about the game differently, so that you can still play it and have fun despite performing poorly. I don't think the best solution to enjoy the game is to just not play it.
It's not about not playing. It's you can show up and use your productivity in different ways. It's like it's not even just not playing.
What do you mean?
What, you show up and you can show up and play friendlies. You can show up and talk to people, and you can show up and like get information about different matchups instead of playing. I think everyone has a different path, and some people, if you tell them to play every tournament, if you tell some types of people to play every tournament, you're going to burn them out. That is that there are different types of learners. If you were a coach, there are some Bobby may be okay playing every single game, but Jem maybe needs to take some more breaks than Bobby does.
Well,
you
Jem's
are
riding the
not
bench. I'm
addressing
telling you what, Bobby's my new starting quarterback.
and that is your hyper masculine like Senju like idea.
That's not what this is about.
You're holding people to an unattainable standard, and some people can attain. You're creating legends. The legends will absolutely show up to everything, and they're going to be the ones that will be the best people in your region. That is what I'll give you, but you're not addressing the majority of the populace, and that is what I'm saying.
I think majority of the populace doesn't want to improve. I think majority of people don't truly want to improve. And yeah, I guess to me, to me,
yeah.
it's like suggesting, oh, hey, you want to be a tournament competitor? Okay, well, just make sure you don't enter if you had a little bit of a hard day and you might be a little bit emotional today. That's like, are you kidding me? It's like, no, dude.
Don't strawman me like that. It's like
I'm strawmanning you. I'm strawmanning you. It's like, no, dude. What's making you emotional? Okay, let's attack at the source. Okay, you really want to win, but you're not playing well. Okay, well, maybe you don't want to win today. Maybe today you just want to do some sick edge guards. Maybe today you want to have some sick combos. Reorient your goals. Don't give up and say, well, I'm just going to go and commentate and drink some water. I've never ever seen somebody that like shows up to tournaments just to like commentate or like just to help run the bracket. I've never once seen any of those people that do that ever be on a PR. Like once. No one's ever like that player is also the person I've like if maybe you know what I mean? Am I crazy?
Yeah. Look, I think that's what it is. Like you're training legends, and if you train someone who's doesn't have the fire to be a legend on the legends training path, they will burn out.
Well, I want to create legends. I don't want to create like the 15th. We're a competitive podcast. I don't want to create like your local scene's 15th best player.
Well, I do, and that's the thing. I don't care. I want to create. I want people to be the best that they can be. It's not about it's not about being the best at something, or it's because some people legitimately just won't be the best at something because their brain doesn't work that way.
I think you've successfully put me on tilt. My amygdala is throttling right now. Amygdala.
Okay, and fair. Like if I'll try. I'm trying to meet you at this one point though. your thing. You are going to create legends by making them enter every tournament. I will absolutely agree with that. However, I do think even a vast majority of competitors and a lot of the people that are listening and me are people that likely maybe won't be on PR or maybe won't be the best player in the region, and I'm okay with that. It's not like we're not like creating losers. It's not about like addressing people who aren't. It's not saying that you're any less for like not being held to a gold standard. I think some people, we just have to help people and give them the tools to maximize who they can be as a player. And for these people that have infinite fire like you, going to every tournament is the right thing to do. And I agree with you. If you're someone like Peon, go to every single tournament because you're going to roll with the punches and you're going to become an amazing player.
AV, I don't have infinite fire. Nobody does. People that go to tournaments and enter
figure of speech.
I know, clearly, AV. Clearly. But people that go to tournaments and enter every single one, right? They're gonna learn more than the people that deny themselves real change. Like I saw this thing, it's like if it isn't making you uncomfortable, it's not changing you. You know, like I saw that and like you need resistance to change. It's like lifting weights or running a mile. Like if you just go to the tournament and it's like little baby comfort land, you're not going to become a better player. Like you have to put yourself under strenuous conditions in order to rise above.
And there are times where you putting yourself in strenuous conditions makes you completely fall out. So it is a balancing act. Like,
Yeah.
are you willing? How much are you willing to put on the line? If if you want to become the best, you put everything on the line. It's like if you're training for a triathlon, and you just decide to not enter one day, then that may be the thing that prevents you from being a really amazing athlete. But if you're not ready and you enter and you drown in the swimming section, what's the point, right? Like, there's is that it would you it, like there are times where you have to control and understand what kind of person you are, where you are on this journey, and say, this is probably the most efficient thing for me to do right now.
Well, I think we've belabored this point. I do think it was an interesting conversation, and I'm curious as to, like, for the viewers at home, or we're out and about wherever you're listening to this show. I wonder where you fall on this issue, and feel free to let us know. But yeah, I mean, that was thanks for. I'm glad that we disagreed, actually, because we
Yeah,
never really
I,
do.
I,
That was
I mean, we
fun.
do sometimes, but it's usually like resolved quicker. But I think that was a lot. That was fun. I'm glad that we have vastly different perspectives on this.
Yeah, man. Well, I do want to end the meat of this conversation by you know contemplating solutions to tilt. We've talked about. I think in that little debate we had, we kind of flirted with this idea. We talked about a little bit, like, um, but let's say you're someone who's alone in their room playing online, and you find yourself frustrated, or you're not enjoying the game, or you turn off the system, and you are more angry than you were when you turned on Smash, right? I think everybody's been there at one point. What are your immediate solutions, Av?
It's interesting. I think there's ways to be productive at something without necessarily playing the game. Like, for example, like what I'm doing for a few or for like oh for a few weeks. I've found that I was getting really frustrated when I was playing the game recently, and it wasn't really putting myself in a good place to become better. I wasn't becoming better when I was turning on the game. So what I did is I just started studying, and I started look at a few things that I want to do when I eventually kind of get back into the meat of things. Because looking at videos and being productive while studying for me is a completely different what do you call it? It's a completely different medium for me that doesn't induce the same response, the amygdala response. I think that's what allows me to be productive even when it may frustrate me to turn on the game. So changing the context is something that's really important for getting past tilt. What do you suggest, Peon?
Yeah, I like taking the immediate breaks. I'm talking, like, if I'm literally frustrated in my room, I might, like, some people have told me that they'll literally go splash cold water on their face, or they'll go do some push-ups, or they'll go, like, in the kitchen and get a, like, glass of water or something, right? And people legitimately kind of separate themselves from the experience. I think that, like, all of those things really function as some sort of pseudo reset button. It's like, okay, reevaluate, snap back into it. Like, what am I doing? Like, let me just cool off for a second. I think all of that stuff is healthy, and I do think that those, like, immediate, like, I think that especially if you're playing at a tournament, or you're like in a scenario where you can't just stop playing immediately. Like, let's say you just got knocked into the losers bracket of your tournament. Um, you kind of have to get out of the tilt mode ASAP. And I definitely do some sort of meditation where I'll just, like, put some headphones in. Like, people kind of who've been around me a lot at tournaments kind of know that I'll do not a salty walk away, but I'll do like a, okay, Peon needs some space. He needs to, like, evaluate and kind of reboot his systems, and I'll just kind of, like, go to the corner or whatever, and I'm not a rager at all, but just kind of chill by myself, think about the match, kind of relax a little bit, get my heart rate down, and then try to get into, like, an optimistic mood going into the rest of my bracket. Like, okay, you can do this, buddy. Like, what do you need, do some self talk. What do I need to improve on? What did I do wrong? What am I going to do when I rematch them in losers? That kind of a thing. I disengage and then re-engage. Do you do anything like that at tournament, AV?
Internal dialogue, yeah, I love that. I love meditation. If you didn't know, I'm obsessed with it. I highly recommend it. I think Peon is an excellent user of it, and one of the best ones that I've seen, especially in the Smash environment. and I use that sometimes. I think I like kind of trained myself to say positive things to be productive. So I've because of like all of like you, Peon, I've been forged in the breeding grounds of competitive video games, and I've had like a long history of being frustrated with games in certain points. So I have come to this point where I'm able to kind of just basically throw out negative thoughts, focus on being productive. And the moment some kind of some type of internal dialogue that isn't productive comes into my head, I immediately address like why I immediately address why I'm thinking that way, and I start trying to move forward and being really active at controlling the dialogue, because sometimes it's easy to let it slip and be inactive and just let your like two selves, your like angel and your devil, talk to each other. And you kind of
Yeah.
just have to make them shut up and and just actively control the dialogue instead of just letting it slip by you.
Yeah, like maybe you could just tell yourself something like, "Hey, you can do this. Like, relax. What am I doing wrong? Like, okay, what what is my opponent doing correctly here? Like, that's like in game, right? But outside of the game, you can just say, calm down. You know, focus up. I just kind of give myself like little kind of coachy esque pep talks in my head, for sure. But like, I want to pivot a little bit to more long term preventative, right? Like that's kind of the band aid is like that self talk, that immediate self reflection and isolation that we both employ. But I want to pivot to how do you build a more permanent state of anti tilt? Like, how do you forge anti tilt armor that will last you decades?
Yeah, and that kind of like fits into the earlier things I was talking about in terms of thinking about how your immediate time usage will affect your improvement at the game. If you know that if you know that you're not going to become a better player from turning on the game, I feel like that's like a huge like concept of what we've talked about today. But you have to figure out whether or not it's going to hurt, you, how much you feel like you're going to be productive today. And you do have control over that. That is something you do have complete control over. It's like if you go and play really laggy matches on quick play, does that improve you as a player, especially when you're tilted? No. I would completely avoid doing like just making that's just a lot of decision making. I would completely avoid doing stuff that has very like low productivity like percentage gains, like something that's like a low percentage play, like go like trying to find that one person on quick play that's really good and has a perfect connection. Don't make low percentage plays when you're in a tilted condition. Make high percentage plays. Do things that will guarantee you productivity, that will guarantee you like longevity in your game, so that you don't burn out and so that you can focus on being a better player in the future. Then this just comes through figuring yourself out and understanding who you are as a person. What do you think, Bian?
Yeah, no, I like that. For me, it comes down to goal reevaluation. It's saying, okay, this is why I play. This is what I want out of this. Um, and it's hard to be tilted when you don't put much value on any individual event, right? Like, let's say you don't even like if your end goal is, hey, I'm gonna show up to this tournament, I'm gonna win this tournament. I don't care how good you are. Let's say you're way better than everybody else in your region. If that is your goal going into a tournament, or hey, I'm going to get elite smash with this character, right? These kind of very process based things, or sorry, very outcome based goals. Um, you're setting yourself up to tilt if you're the kind of person that does tilt, like, because the moment that starts slipping, the moment that outcome is starting to look a little bit unlikely, it will be so frustrating. It's like, man, I can't beat this guy. Man, I just can't get past the GSP threshold in order to make my Greninja elite, right? So, hey, reevaluate. Like I said earlier, work on one aspect of your play. Try to win neutral. Try to control the stage more. Try to land more grabs if you find yourself not grabbing enough, or whatever. Um, that to me is my antidote to tilt.
Yep,
And
I
just
think
don't
those are
talk to
all. Yep.
AV.
Yeah, it maybe don't, but I think but I personally am really hard to tilt in that sense. Like there's very few things that will get to me because of how much I've trained my brain to just like maximize productivity, which is I think where we contend on. Because if there's something that like I'm not, if I'm probably gonna have a negative experience, I'm going to be going and doing something else because I will try to maximize my efficiency. I guess it's a bit robotic in that sense.
Yeah, I
But
just think the moment that
yeah,
I'll say one last thing. I think the
yeah.
moment
Let's
that
look at it.
the moment that you assign a tournament or a tournament experience as a potentially negative thing is the moment that you've been defeated. Like I think that we need to keep, if something's fun for you when you're in a good mood, it has a, in my opinion, a static definition as something that's fun. And if you're not thinking that it's like a bowl of ice cream or something, right? Like, well, no, it's a bad example. I'm losing track of what I'm saying. The point is, I think that we should regard the tournament experience as like this holy thing, and we shouldn't. If we find ourselves routinely seeing it as a liability and not as an asset, then there's probably a deeper problem than your current mood.
Sure. I think that there are many ways to healthily engage with the game, and if you are on average skipping tournaments more often than attending them, you're absolutely correct. However, if you take some days to just to skip a few and overall have a more positive experience, you may not be becoming the best competitive player there is, but you may be maximizing your happiness in life, which is something that I like to do personally, but it's to each their own. I think that I think that it's that overall moving past this, addressing tilt and fixing tilt is more than just a personal thing. Your mentality and your state, your enhanced like fight or flight state, has severe community implications. Being an untiltable player and being a more relaxed person encourages people to join the community. It encourages people to be like to be nicer to each other, and it kind of moves away from trying to push push the responsibility and the blame onto others, and it kind of internalizes it more, and it makes you really think about how to improve as a player. So the less that you tilt, the less that everyone else tilts, and the more people stay in the game. So it's kind of this wonderful public good. It's like vaccinations. This shouldn't be a contentious issue. Like the less people that are tilting, the more people that benefit overall. So it's something that actually affects the community. Like that's often bigger than yourself.
I'm not so sure if I think that there's reasonable doubt that tilting is positive.
Oh my God.
I think we should be skeptical is all I'm saying.
All right, man. Go back to your moon landing denial. But,
look, man, it was a Hollywood set. If you look clearly, and thermite was found at the base of the World Trade Center. So stay woke out there, everybody. But yeah, I think we did a good job of wrapping this whole thing up, AV, despite the 9/11 conspiracy theories. I think it's about time that we answer some questions.
Cool. Let's do it. Ultimate asks, what would your competitive 5v5 squad strike roster be?
Okay. This is easy. Okay, we got Inkling. We got who else? Wolf, the Pokemon trainer. Because get this, if you're going to do squad strike, Pokemon trainer adds like 3 guys to your roster. You got a whole squad with you. You got the first string and the second string. So yeah. Wolf, Inkling, Pokemon trainer, and then I like to use Pichu, right? And then I gotta stick with the ginger, my boy Roy, getting it done. What about you, AV?
Cool. I would say DK, Wolf, Lucina, and then the other 2 are pretty much my flavor of the month. Like that I think those 2 spots will rotate no matter what.
I know you've been playing the Olimar.
Yeah. So Olimar could fit in there depending on whether or not I want people to like me. And there's like a bunch of other characters that could fall in there: Captain Falcon, K. Rool, yeah, just pretty much pretty much anyone. Snake maybe. Like I love playing all the top tiers, so all of them
Sure.
could kind of fit in there. Why didn't you fire up the next question?
Sure thing. So Minlo asks, "Hey guys, I often hear you both mention the act of drinking brews. I find sipping on a cold one and playing Smash a very zen experience. What are your guys' favorite beers and or styles?" Minlo is an IPA guy themselves, but their go-to is Revolutionary Brewery's Anti-Hero, a local one from Chicago. Cool, Minlo. I'd love to try one day.
So, my favorite type of beer is barrel-aged stouts. I'm a huge fan of any type of barrel-aged stout. Obviously, you have your gold standard, your Founders KBS. That's probably the one to go to. You have your Speedway Stout. I believe that's AleSmith Brewing Company. One that I guess is a little contentious these days because of, I think, Nestle buying them out. But Goose Island's Stout is amazing. I'm not that hipster. I will still drink it, but any solid barrel aged stout will probably make me happy. How about you, Peon?
That was as P or not as PN as AV as I expected that answer to be. I also have been really getting into dark beers recently. AV, I love me Lost Coast Brewery's Downtown Brown. It's a brown ale. I made you drink it last time you were in town.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it a lot.
And but I've also been in the mood for like these German and Belgium style beers. My roommate works at a German restaurant / bar, and they serve a bunch of German beer, and he brings a lot of good stuff home. I can't pronounce any of the names, but I've been kind of enjoying that style of like really kind of bready sort of like pilsnery, like pretty basic beers. But I've been flirting with the Belgian and German styles recently.
You probably had a nice Hefeweizen.
Those
Lately.
Hefeweizen, that's like the Bud Light of German beers, right? Isn't it?
I suppose it is. I feel like is that. I wonder if that's offensive to say. Like, it's like I feel like some Hefeweizens are really good. They aren't really Bud Light.
I don't know.
In any case,
but yeah. Short answer: I've been drinking a lot of brown ales and stouts recently. But thanks for the question, Bruno. Yep. One day we'll have to crack one open together.
All right, sure. So Wave Tsunami asks, do you guys have any suggestions on how to prevent tournament fatigue? Like when I get around later in the night at a tournament and I get really drained and I feel like I'm not performing in matches that I had won easily earlier in the night.
See, I love this question, Wave Tsunami, a lot. And that is such a challenge when you're playing at home, right? And you're playing, this is the way that you kind of train. You'll hop online, you'll play, you'll kind of get tired, and then okay, I'm going to just do something else now. But when you're in a tournament, you're kind of stuck there until you're eliminated. You could leave early, but I've never seen anybody do that. Like, hey, I'm kind of tired, I'm just going to DQ myself. So you're kind of stuck there. And there's a lot of solutions. For me, I try to avoid food because if I eat food during a tournament, unless it's like a super long tournament, but let's say it's like a 5-hour tournament, I don't like to eat because an hour after I eat, I kind of crash. I kind of want to just take a nap or something, or just like chill out. And so I don't do that. I like to eat only after I'm out of the tournament, and I also make sure to bring a lot of water while I play. Like I drink a lot of water and I don't eat food. That's kind of like my main formula.
Yep, I agree. I don't eat anything heavy either. I sometimes will eat a banana or an energy bar because those can kind of keep you going. Staying hydrated, like you said, is extremely important.
What the hell is an energy bar? That sounds like some Silicon Valley, like some post future, like
dude.
What are you talking about? Energy? That's like the most pretentious
thing. Like a Cliff Bar, dude. Do you know what a Cliff Bar is? That's not some Silicon Valley stuff.
What are you talking about? I am going to eat a calorie snack. Like it's a little too literal. It's like some Wall-E kind of dystopian George Orwellian. I will have an energy bar. Are you kidding me? You sound like you're wearing a turtleneck.
All right. Well, if that makes me Steve Jobs, why not, man? But look, I think I think that sleep is super important. I say this a lot. If you are not properly rested going into a tournament, you will crash. If you drink a ton of coffee, you will eventually crash. So, making sure that your like these environmental factors are figured out, which is pretty much the only thing you can do to combat it. It is a completely like it is a problem that is centered entirely around your body. So eventually you get better at playing at long times. So that's also something that happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna add one more wrinkle to this. If you're an introverted person and you kind of get exhausted by social interaction, which I think a lot of smashers are, um, it's okay to take a break from talking to people. Go sit down, scroll on your phone, go take a walk around the venue and get some fresh air. And if you're ever going to compete soon, and you get exhausted by social interaction, you're not super obligated to talk to everybody while you're trying to get in the correct headspace to compete, right? So that's another little wrinkle. Like sometimes I'll just go. I'm very extroverted, but even I will go and find some quiet and just kind of preserve my battery life, if you will.
That was an awesome point. I love that. Yeah, that's super good. I can't recommend that enough.
So, AV, I think that's all we have time for this week. Thank you so much for joining me, buddy. Even though I think we like each other even like 0.1% less than we did when we started this episode. I know that.
Well, speak for yourself. I'm used to you contending and debating me. So I like this. I like our conversations like this. I think that we both brought really important perspectives, and I think both perspectives are really important when you're addressing this question. So I think that really improved the quality of the conversation, in my opinion.
Well, and your courage to kind of check me on that last point right there actually was a big turn on for me. Not in a weird way, but like in a friendship sort of way. And I think we're in the net positive now. So well done. Good save.
Yeah, nice. That's what I do.
AV, where can people find you, my friend?
People can find me at A Vaidyanatha. That's A plus my long Indian last name on Twitter. You can also find the Beyond the Metagame Twitter account. Peon, where can we find that?
Oh, that's at Beyond Metagame. That's right. Beyond Metagame. You see, Twitter did not allocate any room for the. And you can find me at Peon_BTM. That's right. That's Peon_BTM, as in Bravo, Tango, Mike, for all of you Republicans. And that is all we have time for this week. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. As always, goodbye. This episode of BTM was brought to you in part to our patrons: BK Otto, Danderson, Dean Guy, Ferris, Hawk Lava, Robert, and Ultima.